Okay, good morning, colleagues. I think we should start now. Good morning once again, colleagues. I would like to welcome you to our media briefing session this morning. The focus of this media briefing is really to showcase the young people who are actually behind some of the great research which is aimed at improving the quality of lives in South Africa. I would like to welcome all of you colleagues who are joining us on Teams platform, and also would like to send my special greetings to our media colleagues and all members of the public who are joining us via our live streaming on YouTube. Welcome this morning. So I'm not going to waste much of your time this morning. Like what I indicated, we want to focus more on young people as part of celebrating the Youth Month. As we all know that in South Africa, June is dedicated to young people and the work that they are doing. So this morning we'll have 3 presentations from our young researchers who are doing very well here at the CSIR. They will take you through the journey, their life journey, including career, and also we'll talk about the work that they're doing at the CSIR. We'll start with Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi, I beg your pardon. Jeffrey is our senior researcher, so he will focus on the research that he's doing on acid mining drainage. So he will tell us more when he joins us. We'll also have Aradhna Pandarum, who is, our acting research group leader in the energy space. So she will talk about the career journey. Sorry? Oh, okay. I thought there was someone who wants to raise something. Okay. So she will focus more on the work that she's doing in the energy space, including her career journey. Lastly, we'll have Dr. Zanele Ntshidi, who is also a senior researcher, but she will also focus on her career journey, but looking at the monitoring and modeling of water use in the agricultural crops and forestry. So immediately after those 3 presentations will allow you to ask questions. You are allowed to also, ask questions on chat box. We'll read them out to our key speakers. Without wasting time, let me I didn't introduce myself. My name is David Mandaha. I am the CSIR Media Relations Manager. Thank you so much. Without wasting time, let me now invite Dr. Jeffrey Baloyi to share his presentation. Over to you, Jeffrey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. David Mahanda. And thanks to the colleagues who have made time to join the media briefing. I will be sharing my presentation.
Jeffrey, if possible, can we also see your face if that's possible from your side? Thank you.
No, it's very much possible. Okay. You will confirm if you can. I believe the face you can see it now. You can confirm if you can.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Perfect. I think you can go ahead now.
All right, no, thank you, Program Director, and also thanks to all the colleagues and then the media who joined us this morning. So the presentation which I'll be taking you through is titled Maximizing the Acid Mine Drainage Recovery Values from Linear Economy Legacies to a Circular Economy Resources. So I'll start with a very brief background. I'm Jeffrey Baloyi, as I've been already been introduced, and then I work for the CSIR as a senior researcher based within the Water Center of the CSIR under Smart Places. So like many of us, I grew up from the deep rural villages of Limpopo in the village called Makasa village, and then where I studied all my primary to high school and then finished high school there. And then one of the greatest challenge, which is still facing most of these schools, that the lack of laboratories, and then also the lack of having science teachers. I mean, like when we're in high school, as it was worse because we didn't have science teachers. Especially when we were doing these mathematics in higher grade maths and science, it becomes a challenge in terms of having the teachers which can teach us. And then after that, fast forward, and then I moved to the university, and then I studied chemical engineering, where I studied up to PhD, and then I graduated with a PhD from Wits University in 2019. And then I'm currently registered with EXA as a professional. So the reason I have to choose science, it was based on much in terms of the little hope which I have seen in terms of the water scarcity in the village, and then where we have experienced this day zero from the
we have lost you, Dr. Baloyi. Not sure if you can hear us.
I should just switch off the video so that at least we can have.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is it fine now?
Perfect. Yes, perfect.
All right. So I was inspired to enroll for science subject because of the suffering which I've seen from the village in terms of the water scarcity, and also with my own parents from home who never went to school, in terms of their love indigenous science, in terms of looking in terms of the traditional conventional way of water conservation, which they've inspired so many people within the village in terms of that. And then what I wanted was that one day I will be in a position to try to contribute my small contribution towards the water scarcity as we fight water insecurity within the country. So I had to enroll for chemical engineering, as I've said, graduated up to PhD, now within a year at the CSIR, and now as a professional chemical engineer registered with EXA. So fast forward, I will move to the outline of the technical presentation, which I will take you through. So I'll look at the acid mine drainage, which is a big problem in the country, and then also the quality, the treatment, and also the valuable products which you can recover from the acid mine drainage. So the presentation will be just short and simple as like that, due to also the time which I have for 15 minutes to make sure that I deliver everything. So the acid mine drainage is the persistent byproduct of the present and the past mining activities. So both the current and active and abandoned mines, all these mines are faced with the challenges in the underground tunnel shafts and open pits and waste rock and piles and miles and mill tailings. So we know that our country have been much dependent in terms of the mining activities to boost the economy and create employment. As we do that, there is also another problem which we have created over the years, which is the problem of the AMD, which we are faced with now. So how does it happen? So when the oxygen and the water comes in contact with exposed mine rock surfaces, which containing sulfide minerals, and then the AMD is being generated. So the process itself is natural. However, we as a human also, when we do this mining, we have a potential to promote this generation of AMD. This can be done through the increasing the quantity of sulfide exposed. And also another natural process occurring might be that of the bacteria, which can accelerate the AMD generation by assisting the breakdown of sulfide minerals. So the water quality is very important. Colleagues, is very important because when you look, and also the member of the media houses is very important because if you look, the mining, the setup and the zoning in our country as South Africa is different from other parts of the world. We have our unique legacies, which I won't dwell much into. So when you see on the picture, which I've seen there, this is the picture I took while I was a very young student in 2013 doing the project in the AMD at Emalahleni. So you have people who are living very exposed to the close river, which is affected by the AMD. So you find, even when you look at here in Joburg, the Central Basin and the Western Basin, that's the situation that these areas, which are very important to part of our lives, are very much affected in a very close proximity with the AMD. So that's the problem which we have in South Africa. So it's an open secret that the AMD itself has reached a critical point in South Africa. We've seen so many initiatives from the government, even the private sector, trying to solve the problem. So what the water comprises of, it has a very low pH and high concentration of heavy metals with sulfides and high acidity and the toxic elements which are there, depending from site to site. So this AMD can contaminate the surface and also the groundwater as well as the soils. And then meaning even if we have to have the boreholes on those areas, it does not really assist that much. So one of the major concerns is very clear to all of us now, which is the water security, which is compromised by the AMD. So hence inspiring to do this research and also for us to be talking about this now. So one has to reason and also to look in terms of the how, if now we say we have the AMD problem in a central basin, and I'm situated somewhere in the borders of the Zimbabwe, which can be a bad bridge, does that really matter to me? So from the surface water perspective, the major rivers that South Africa shares with other countries that are vulnerable to pollution by AMD are Orange River and Limpopo River and Komat rivers. So that simply tells you that the problem which is being here in Western Basin or Central, it affects even the countries in the SADC region. So it's not only about people of Gauteng, but through the river networks, it gets to affect all of us. Hence, it's our problem to solve all of us. So we know that the AMD itself is very dangerous to human health, and that itself, and also to not only to human health, even to plants and other things. So the South African mines are impacted by the AMD that are lacking a remediation method that address the social, ecologic, and the economic needs of affected communities. So here I will look in terms of addressing what is lacking, as I've said in the previous slide, So we have the AMD, which now ask ourselves a question to say, can we just prevent the acid mine drainage? Is it possible? But with the science, it becomes impractical to do so. Why? I've addressed in the previous slides to show that the process, it occurs natural and how it occurs. And the process also, as it occurs, for now, we have problem which has been generated over the years. And then now I'll move fast forward to prediction. Can we predict? Of course we can, but this is extremely challenging. And then why? Because the formation of this AMD, it depends on the site to site. If now you talk about Emalahleni, the picture I've showed you, the picture of the AMD there in terms of the what it consists of and how it's formed is different from a coal mine to a gold mine. So that makes it to be very difficult, but we can try to predict this through the use of various technologies within the 4AR. So we look at the remediation, simple word, just treatment. We have different methods which we're using to treat in the different mining sites, but the problem we have now is that they generate high sludge production, then which we don't have a land in these areas. When you look at the central western basin in Joburg and all this, we have a lot of mine dumps. We don't have a land to be having this sludge, and also the toxicity which is found in the sludge is also endangers lives of our people. So the efficiency of this treatment method, of course, it will vary from a technology to technology and a mine from a mine. So what the CSIR is advocating for is the sustainable AMD practices, so that we don't just treat and then we don't care about the downstream. So which it covers the reuse and the resource recoveries, which will directly reduce the sludge generation, because we'll be able to take this sludge and generate products which can boost even the economy. And the brine treatment, which is this, which can treat the salts, which these salts can boost the economy. The salt can be used for washing soap and other things. You'll see as we proceed. So an enhanced treatment efficiency. So all these I have said above are able to offset the operating cost of the entire process. So as the CSR, what we focused on is that we emphasize to say the future we see is that we should reach a stage where we have a bulk production of these resource recoveries, and then the treatment, the water itself can be treated and be taken back even to the waste water treatment plant, and then so that it can be put in the network distribution system. The other valuable products can be processed and then manufactured in a huge production so that it boosts our economy and offset these treatment processes. So the CSIR Water Center, in regarding the AMD, is promoting waste beneficiating and then circular economy. This in the mining sector and beyond. And then we're ensuring that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 6, 9, and 12 are responded to, because it's very important that the research we do within the CSR, even other science councils, are able to find itself, so that within the United Nations Sustainable Goals, so that we address also the challenges of the world and the challenges which we have locally. And then what the CSR itself is busy with is the sustainable treatment, as I've said. So here I'm just showing you that what is it that we can recover when we talk about the resources recovery. We can recover the water, of course, and the water which we can use back to the system. And then remember that most of the water we are using is not a virgin water. This is the water which has to be reclaimed and be taken like that. So that should not scare people to say, no, water from AMD. What if we were able, we have proved it as a country that we can treat water, and this is the water we have been drinking, most of us. So the resource recovery, we talk about sulfuric acid, we talk about the rare earth metals and the valuable minerals. So some of these you will see its use and also its market share on the next slides. So here I'm just showing you the process flow diagram of the CSR. The fellow colleagues who are engineers, I'm sure they will be very much excited to see things like this, but the other colleagues might forgive me because this is just being maybe too technical for them. But this was just to show that as a CSR, this is what the AMD treatment which we have developed and patented, and then these are how we move through. And then also it also inspired even the other research we're still doing within the process. So I won't bother you too much with the technicality in terms of the process, but it was very important that you can see in terms of what we are doing. So the image is the same inner image of that process flow diagram. This is based on the CSR Innovation Center, which we have here at just behind our building at the water center. So we have these in our premises, and then the slide which I was talking about, I've cycled it there. So that's the plan which we are having. So here we looked at available product recovered from the CSR process. So we were able to recover sulfuric acid, which can have so many uses, even in the agriculture. So the minerals recovered, we have recovered very different minerals from gypsum, which can be used in the constructions, and then we have recovered different iron oxide, hematite, geotite, and then the salts recovered, which can be used for manufacturing of the liquid soap, and then we have also the rare earth elements recovery, which can be used for these high tech. One can think about the smartphone you are using now. Think about that tablet and everything, smartwatches and all these things. So this is very critical because even in this era of fourth industrial revolution, we're moving into that if we can recover the rare earth elements, and then we are rest assured that we can be competing as a country with other countries which are up there. So let's look at the rare earth metals, and then the market. We've decided to say that I will put the markets because these figures are very important, that when you say you will recover, so that one can understand that it's not about just exercising the science or doing the science for the sake of science, but the value in terms of the economy. So the rare earth elements in 2020, the rare earth elements market was worth approximately $2.6 in millions, and then the forecasted to be valued at about 520 million US dollars by 2028, compound annual growth rate of 10% between 2020 and 2028. The market growth can be mainly attributed to the increasing demand of emerging technologies as hybrid and electric cars. So you see now we talk about electric cars. So in conjunction with the use of the magnets and application of optical instruments. So here we talk about some serious stuff in the era of the fourth industrial revolution, which motivates the market to increase. So the increasing demand for smart devices such as smartphone, tablets, and laptops due to industrialization is one of the contributing factors to the growth of the market. So I'll move to the minerals. The recovered minerals from the CSIR pilot plants, these are mainly iron oxide, calcium carbonate, and gypsum, as I've said. The global iron oxide pigment market size was about 1.8 billion US dollars in 2015. These were counted in billions. So was projected to reach about 3.1 billion US dollars by the end of 2027. The growing at a compound annual growth rate of approximately 4% during the forecasted period. Globally, the market size of the calcium carbonate was estimated to be 21.8 billion US dollars in 2020, and it's expected to reach about 23.2 billion US dollars in 2022 at a compound annual growth rate of 6.62 to reach 32.1 billion US dollars by 2026. So when we look at the local, the South African gypsum plaster market was about 32,000 tons in 2018 and approximately 141,000 tons in 2019. The market is further expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of approximately 6 to 7% between 2020 and 2025 to reach the volume of about 200,000 tons by 2025. This is inspired by the growing infrastructure projects, increasing the demand of the iron oxide pigment from automotive industry, urbanization in developing countries, are driving the global market for this iron oxide. So I will just move to the last one, which now is sulfuric acid. So the global sulfuric acid market was valued at approximately 9.3 billion US dollars in 2015, and then 11 billion US dollars in 2017, and further the sulfuric acid market size was estimated to be about 244 million tons in 2015 and was projected to reach roughly about 278 million tons by 2021. Then the forecast compound annual growth rate for sulfuric acid is about 2.5 to 5%. This forecast is dependent on the projected increasing demand for fertilizers in agriculture and its increasing use in chemicals, pulp, papers, oil, metal processing, and automotive sectors. So if you have to look in terms of the agriculture, in terms of the fertilizers, our economy, to be honest now, the time and the era of depending much on the gold has passed, and then the focus now need to move also to look in terms of the agriculture. So if we do have this market in terms of agriculture, this is tailored much of our current need as an African continent, as a South Africa. So these are some of the things that if we have much investment on, the market is there, and through the market analysis of what I've selected, it can become very much obvious that should we invest at this, and then the AMD as acid mine drainage could not be seen as a problem, but could be seen as a resource so that which we can take advantage of and then generate products out of it. And then that's the future which we see at the CSIR water center, that AMD might not be a problem, but might be looked as a resource which everyone will be running to the AMD side and trying to build the plants which are able to manufacture the above these products which I've mentioned in bulk, and so many other products which we are still going through to discover through our continued research. So this is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much, the program director, and thanks all the listeners and the members of the media for your attention. And then I think I've done justice to the time to try to move within 15 minutes, but I think I tried. Thank you very much, and then back to you, program director.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baloyi, for the very insightful, presentation. Colleagues who are joining us right here on Teams, members of the media, welcome once again. We'll give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation. We just finished the first presentation. If you're joining us on our live streaming session, please ensure that you type in your questions so that we can read them out at the end of our session. So right now, I think we'll go to Ms. Pandarum, who will be talking about her work at the Energy Center, the impact of that work on the society, and also, to just take us through her journey as a young, scientist. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. So I am Aradhna Pandarum, and I am the acting research group leader for a team within the Energy Center called the Energy Industry Team. In terms of my profile, so I actually come from a very small town in KwaZulu-Natal. It's called Umzinto, and I grew up and studied in the town in terms of my high school and primary career. I then moved on to the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban to study my BSc in electronic engineering. And I was then offered, while studying, I was offered a bursary from ESCOM, and I continued with my engineering training services at ESCOM, where I continued working for the research, testing, and development section within ESCOM in Johannesburg. So I did move up after a while. And there I performed various research activities and testing and development within the renewable energy space. So we were looking at all the renewable technologies and associated impacts of renewables, so technical, economic, operational, and environmental impacts. And whilst doing that work, I continued with my master's in electrical engineering, which entailed power flow simulations of various renewable energy systems on our network, which is quite technical. And I then was awarded my professional engineering registration via Engineering Council of South Africa. And I just moved to the CSIR in January. So I started as a senior researcher and in January, and was offered various opportunities to actually grow in this short space of time. And due to some changes within the energy center, I was then offered a position to act as the research group leader for the energy industry team, which I've started doing from May this year. So in the team I currently lead, we perform research on the just energy transition, which I'm sure many of you have heard. It's quite a hot topic in the news and in the media. And I'll give you a little bit more information on that work a little bit later. But basically, it is related to social and economic impacts and aspects related to the energy transition from moving away from coal-dependent energy towards net zero or low carbon energy sources for South Africa. And in that process, ensuring that it is actually just for the people that are affected, as well as the laborers that are going to transition in the energy transition. I was also recently appointed as the International Working Group member for South Africa. So I sit on the technical board for SIGRE, which is an International Council for Large Electrical Systems, where I am currently representing South Africa in the International Working Group for Active Energy and Distribution Systems, and as well as distributed energy resources. Okay, so I have a team of currently 4 people who currently report to me. So this team is made up of Abram Marema, Donna Simiu, Boitumelo Tlokolo, and Chwanelo Rakaebe. And I have indicated their ages, so you can see that we are all a team of youth as well. So Abram is 28. He has he's awaiting results for his master's in economics, and he has a BCom honors in economics cum laude and a BCom economics. And then Boitumelo is 23. She has her BCom in economics and econometrics cum laude as well. And she also has her BCom honors in econometrics. And I then have Donna, so she's 34. She's currently pursuing her PhD in electrical engineering. And she has her M.Eng in electrical engineering. She has a B.Eng in honors in electrical and a BSc in electrical and electronic engineering. And lastly, but not least, I have Chwanelo, who is 33, and she has done her MSc in energy studies. She also has a BSc honors in energy studies, a BCom economics honors, as well as a BCom economics degree. So my team is very vibrant. We are all dynamic, and you can see that we are made up of technical and economic qualities as well, which also allow us to understand various fields related to the energy industry. So going back to the just transition, so if we go to the National Development Plan, which has been promulgated by the government as part of the Conference of Parties, I'm sure you've heard of COP26 or COP27 that's coming up. So basically, everyone is becoming a little bit more aware of climate change and what us as humans have been doing to the planet in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And by that virtue, we all have identified the need for us to drive towards a more low carbon or a less carbon intensive energy system. But this does not only relate to energy. There are also other factors that could be involved in reducing our carbon emissions. But the main contributions is from the energy sector. So that is why it's focused on so much. If we look at the landscape of the energy sector and in terms of the research and development that is required for us to move towards a low carbon emissions system, we obviously have to look at what is called the 4Ds, if you may have heard of it in university. So there's the decarbonization, which refers to the decommissioning of coal-fired power stations, the closing down of coal mines, and therefore the declining coal exports that we have in South Africa. And this includes the transition to cleaner technologies, which have been considered as renewable technologies at the moment. And this forms part of the Renewable Energy Power Producer Program that has been promulgated by the government as well. And this forms a significant portion of that transition. Then we have decentralization. So this includes embedded generation and also customers installing their own rooftop PV systems, and thus being referred to as distributed energy resources in the network or the grid. And then we have deregulation. So this focuses on adopting and adapting to new adopting current regulations and adapting them to new policies that is required for us to actually make the transition. And this also indicates the need for what is called democratization of energy. So this looks at where customers also get the opportunities and private partners also get opportunities to install their own energy and invest in their own energy systems. And this looks at also enabling the localization and manufacturing of components that's required for the just energy transition. And lastly, we have what is called the digitalization. So I'm sure all of you have heard of the fourth industrial revolution, and this very much speaks to that. This basically brings up all of the new technologies together and allows us to be smart in the way we are installing and implementing these technologies, as well as understanding what their impacts are on the network that we have or the grid that we have. So looking at the just transition landscape, so this is split into various effects that come out from us moving towards a less carbon intensive system. And there's four broad effects that are referred to generally. So there's the social effects, which include, the quality of health, the actual social pathologies, the community participation, and basically anything related to the livelihoods that are the people that are affected by the transition. Then we have the economic effects, which looks at the number of jobs that you're going to create from the new technologies that you're going to be putting on the system. From moving away from coal, because South Africa is a very coal dependent country in terms of our economy, we now need to diversify that economy. So what economic diversifications can we consider, and how does government regulation and government spending involve or incorporate into such processes? Also looking at what skills are actually required for the new energy landscape that we're going to be experiencing. And then we look at the environmental effects, and I think this is basically the segment that most people talk about, and this is related to greenhouse gas emissions and the land use, and relating to the water quality that also has been touched on by Jeffrey as well, effects on biodiversity and such. And lastly, you have the technical and costs, which is basically the technologies that you actually going to transition into. What are the costs of those? What are the lifetime impacts on the network? What is the impacts on the actual tariffs, that the electricity tariffs that we're going to be paying? And those aspects are also then considered. So our job as the energy industry team is to actually look at the social and economic impacts and relating to specifically the jobs that is going to be created from the new pathways that are going to be selected for the energy transition. And then this is, looking at beyond just the technical core energy costs. Then secondly, there's the evaluation of options relating to the holistic cost benefits, if I could put it that way, for these different costs that are going to be incurred for moving towards these different technologies. And lastly, we are close to initiating what is called an energy industry support program, and this is basically to develop and technically incubate small and medium micro enterprises for enterprise development and economic growth in South Africa, as well as to identify opportunities for the just transition that is going to occur for these specific enterprises. This also relates to the fact of looking at what skills are required for the energy transition as well. In terms of the market opportunities, so this is a little bit technical. I think I will just touch on some of the aspects at a very high level. So we all know that because we need to move away from coal, we therefore need to decommission some of the coal-fired power stations. Actually, most of the coal-fired power stations that we have in South Africa. For your information, in terms of those coal-fired power stations, most of them are actually located in Mpumalanga. So Mpumalanga is going to be heavily impacted by us shutting down those coal-fired power stations. And that is why the need for our job in terms of identifying what new opportunities can be created in those areas that are going to be affected and those livelihoods that are going to be affected. And how do we ensure that nobody's left behind in the just transition? And this also involves looking at new technologies. I'm sure you've been hearing about green hydrogen and the DTIC talking about the Hydrogen Valley roadmap and all of these aspects related to hydrogen. So that is one of the technologies that are also being pursued alongside the renewable technologies as solar and wind and battery storage that have been previously mentioned. So if we look at the energy plan, so currently South Africa has what is called an integrated resource plan, which refers to the power sector and the electricity plan. It doesn't necessarily look at the energy plan, which includes green hydrogen. So looking at just the resource plan and in terms of electricity generation, we can see that there's about 46,000 jobs that are actually going to be lost from the coal coal-fired power stations that are going to be shut down. And if we look at the energy or the technologies that have been proposed as part of the integrated resource plan going to 2030, we can say that there's only going to be about 34,000 or 35,000 jobs that are going to be created by these new technologies that are going to be inputted into the system. So we now need to identify what happens with those 46,000 jobs. Can we reskill them into new technologies that are going to be added to the grid? Or how do we actually approach these situations in a way that is just for everyone that is involved? And that is actually our job in the core energy industry plan for the energy center in the CSIR. So we've looked at some of the previous work that has been done. So there was a very nice project that was done by my previous colleagues, which is called the Core Benefits Project. And this specifically looked at some of the employment effects, skills development, and gender needs and industrialization opportunities that can be pursued for the coal-fired power stations that are going to be decommissioned in Mpumalanga. And if we consider some of the renewables power generation in Mpumalanga as well. So adding some of the solar and the wind projects to Mpumalanga. Currently, there are no large-scale solar and wind projects in Mpumalanga, and this is very scary. So we also need to identify what policy and regulation changes actually need to occur for us to improve the situation and actually help these communities in Mpumalanga that's going to be affected. So some of the policy recommendations has been made, but there's definitely a lot of work that is required for us to take forward. In terms of the next project, so this specific project looked at what are the repurposing options that can be pursued for coal mines and coal power stations when we are moving away from the coal-fired power stations or power generation, as well as mining of coal in that specific area. So there were quite a few options that were identified, and this was basically drawn from a task team that was put together for South Africa as well as the Europe countries to identify some of the options and the learnings from their repurposing journeys that they're currently on, as well as some of the things they have learned from the research that they have done to pursue repurposing in Europe as well. And then there's the last project that we are actually currently working on, and I've previously diversification. So this specifically looked at Mpumalanga and what options we can actually pursue for Mpumalanga to actually diversify the coal economy there. So these are the options that have come up. Some of the enablers and barriers are available in the reports that we've written. And we are currently finalizing some of the work around what may look like a just transition fund. So this is basically if you could consider the COVID relief grant that you have for the impacts of COVID. This is similar to that in terms of a grant that would be available to affected and impacted parties from the transition away from coal in the various that we're going to be doing that at. So that's very interesting work, and I would like to talk a little bit more on that if you have questions on it. And in terms of the youth targeted programs, so I actually technically supervise an MSc student at the University of Pretoria. They are currently studying the forecasting models for renewable energy, and this touches on some of the work that I've actually done at Eskom. And then, as I've mentioned, in terms of the energy industry support program that we're trying to develop, and which will probably be initiated very, very soon with the likes of EWCETA. We also have a partner, SICA ED, which is a chartered accountant firm, and we are currently supporting various entrepreneurs, which actually predominantly consist of youth, in terms of developing their technical ideas for business enterprises and economic economic development in South Africa. So this is a technical incubation program where we offer, as the CSIR, our technical services to help them move from one stage in their business to the next stage, to be a little bit more successful. We're also working collaboratively with Rest for Africa. So this is an Italian corporation, and they are running a program on reskilling for renewable energy futures. And this is also targeting youth in Mpumalanga to be able to identify what curriculum development is required for the new energy landscape that will be in Mpumalanga to help them with employment opportunities in Mpumalanga. And last but not least, we are developing skills development programs. And looking at, what is required from the supply, which is basically the integrated resource plan, for example, in terms of the future generation technologies that have been selected, and also from the demand side. So we're looking at some of the companies like Enel and Schneider, and some of the bigger companies that are asking for skills for the energy transition in terms of the new technologies that are being installed and are already being implemented, but have skills shortages. So we are trying to identify that skills gap as well. And the future projects, so as I've mentioned, the skills program for the energy transition, the energy industry support program. I've also mentioned green hydrogen. So we are looking at various pathways and the economic and socioeconomic impacts of those various pathways that we can pursue for green hydrogen. We're also going to be looking at climate adaptation measures for the energy sector, and also circular economy opportunities for the energy sector as well. And these are the few projects that we're going to be focusing on as the energy industry. And that is my last slide. I thank you for listening to me, and I thank you for this opportunity. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aradhna. Thanks for the great presentation. I would like to move to Dr. Zanele, who will take us through her work, especially looking at the monitoring and also modeling of water use in the agricultural space. So yeah, after this presentation, then we'll open the floor for questions so that our young researchers can then attempt to answer those questions. Thank you so much. Over to you, Zanele. You're on mute, Zanele.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect.
You can see my slides and you can see my face.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Zanele Ntshidi. I am a senior researcher in the Smart Water Use Group that falls within the Water Center of the Smart Places Cluster at CSIR. And today I'll be talking to you about the research that we conduct in my space, which involves the monitoring and modeling of water use of agricultural crops, as well as forestry. I'll be focusing mainly on plant water use. Outside CSIR, I am Zanele and I am from the Eastern Cape. I am from a small town called Libode in the Eastern Cape, from a small village called MQ. That is where I come from. Okay, so about my qualifications. I hold a degree in environmental and water sciences from the University of the Western Cape. For my honors research, I focused on hydrogeology, where I looked at the correlation between water abstraction and the power consumption. And then for my master's, I focused on ecohydrology, where I looked at the impact of alien invasive plants on water resources. And for my PhD, I focused on agricultural water management. So those are my qualifications. The highest I hold a PhD in environmental and water sciences from the University of the Western Cape. In terms of professional associations, I am a member of the Golden Key International Honor Society. I am also a professional natural scientist certified by South African Council for Natural Scientists. The research that we do in terms of the background, the agricultural sector, it has been reported by the National Water Resources Strategy of 2013. It's reported as the sector that uses more than 60% of available water for irrigation. And then they go on to say, yet the water losses are also very high, meaning it's also one of the sectors that is using water inefficiently. Also, I also spoke of looking at forestry. So in terms of forestry, significant amounts of water are used by alien invasive plants, which reduce the yield of dams and river flows. Therefore, with all that I have mentioned, there is an increase in water demand and the competition for water rises due to population growth, economic expansion, and climate change. Climate change has caused a decrease in rainfalls while there has been an increase in warmer temperatures. This has all resulted in water scarcity across the country. So the limited water resources makes it necessary to improve water use efficiency, mainly to reduce non-beneficial water uses, to reduce any wastage, for instance, that can be found in the agricultural sector. When I speak of non-beneficial water uses, I'm speaking of the water that could be wasted in an orchard that is not used to actually grow the actual plant. So the aims of the research that we conduct, it is for one, to investigate options to increase the resilience of irrigated agriculture to water scarcity through implementing water-saving technologies. In the research that we do, we create technologies that can help the farmer be able to irrigate more efficiently. Also, to gather information on water use of alien invasive plants, which are becoming a problem as they have been reported to use large quantities of water, especially when you compare them to indigenous plants. This is to better understand their environmental impacts, and the findings that we will be finding from such research would share them with decision makers so that they may have scientific evidence when they decide on when it's time for them to prioritize areas to clear. For instance, there are entities like Working for Water, which are responsible for clearing alien plants. So such information will be important to know which areas to prioritize. So the problems that are addressed by the research that we conduct, for one, it will be the inefficient water use in the agricultural sector, and the second one being the alien invasive plants that consume large quantities of water. So the projects that we are currently working on, so I just listed them here, and then in the slides to follow, I go into each one of them. The first one will be, we are developing a national scales crop factors database to improve water resources management in the agricultural sector. The second one being, we are quantifying the water saving benefits of shade net technologies in orchards. The third one, we are evaluating the utility of indigenous fruit tree species as alternative drought-tolerant tree crops based on their water requirements and productivity. Then the fourth one, we are developing a decision support system for water use efficiency of irrigated tree crops in the Inkomati-Usutu water management area. And then the last one, where we are assessing the impacts of alien invasive plants on water resources. So the first one, I'm saying, what is the problem that is being addressed here, which is the inefficient water usage in the agricultural sector, which has been reported as the problem. So we are going to come up with a tool that can assist with irrigation scheduling. So the proposed solution here is a database which will be available in the form of an online computer program or a smartphone application that can be linked to existing water use models. This can assist farmers when they need to irrigate, when they need to schedule their irrigation. In terms of capacity building, which is one of the important things important things that we have here at the CSIR. One of the most important strategic objectives, it is to build and transform human capital. So in terms of capacity building, we have students that are trained on the project. And then now moving on to the next project where we are quantifying the water savings of shade nets. So the problem that is being addressed here is non-scientifically proven benefits of different management practices. Different management practices in this case being that there are shade nets. One orchard may be having shade nets, one orchard may be not be having shade nets. So what are the benefits? So one may say this saves water, but is it scientifically proven that it saves water? So the main aim of the project being to quantify the potential water savings of apple orchards grown, or of any orchards in fact, grown under fixed or draped netting, to develop guidelines for scheduling irrigation under those particular management practices. So again, in terms of capacity building, there are students being trained in this project, and then we also create awareness among farm workers. We spread awareness. Why is it important to report, for instance, even if they are seeing some leakages that are happening in the farm, the importance of water in general. Those are some of the things of the awareness that we will be creating among the farm workers. So project number 3, where we are looking at the productivity of indigenous fruit trees. The problem being that future production of exotic fruit, for instance, like apples, pears, citrus, it will become difficult due to increasingly harsh conditions as change will be on its way. There is need for alternative crop, especially for resource poor households. So the main aim here being to evaluate the utility of indigenous fruit trees as alternative drought-tolerant tree crops based on their water requirements and yield and quality. So in this project as well, students are being trained, students with a background of botany, water use, plant water use. And then in this particular project, there are technicians from the institutions that we are collaborating with, who are not familiar with the methods that are being used to measure this water use. So those technicians, we give them training. And then the fourth one, the main problem again being inefficient water use in farms in the agricultural sector. The proposed solution for this one, it is to develop a smartphone application for estimating the maximum unstressed water use for key irrigated tree crops. So in this project as well, there are students that are being trained, and then community awareness also among farm workers is also being done in all the projects that we do. And then the last one, where we are looking at the water use of alien invasive plants. So the problem being the high water consumption of invasive alien plants. And then the proposed solution on this one being the natural resource management, the aim being to quantify the water use of these invasive alien plants that are invading a groundwater dependent community. So in this one, there are some junior researchers that are being trained in the project, as well as there are also some students who will be coming in the following year. And then, these are some, I'm acknowledging some of the funders and some of the collaborators that we are working with. And then thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Zanele, and the rest of the team. That was a great presentation. Now I think it's that time for question and answer. I would like us to check if there are any questions on the chat box. Lindy, do we have any questions?
Hi, David. No, there are no questions at this stage on our YouTube stream.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the journalists who are in this platform? Okay, it looks like there is No question at this moment. Okay, there's one hand from Thandi. Please go ahead.
Thank you, colleagues. It was actually a very nice, informative presentations that you guys did. My question is to Jeffrey. We all know that it has been reported that the water from Hammanskraal and lately Bronkhorstspruit as well is not of good quality. I don't know what is happening around that. Is there anything that CSIR is contributing towards helping the local government or municipalities, to really sort out that water problem?
Thank you, Thandi. Jeffrey? Jeffrey, I'm sure you are on mute if you are talking.
Hello?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. Can I get a question?
The question was around the water quality in Hammanskraal and I think in Bronkhorstspruit as well. So Thandi would like to know if there is any contribution from the CSIR.
Okay. No, thanks. Thanks, Program Director, and also thanks, Thandi. Yes, regarding the Hammanskraal and Bronkhorstspruit, there's intervention from the CSR Water Center where the team is looking in terms of the first was about the water quality in terms of checking what might be the problem and then which will advance to the stage in terms of developing the systems which are meant to assist. And then currently with we have a memorandum of understanding and also working with the City of Tshwane, which are responsible for those. And then we'll be launching another technology which we have developed in one of their waterworks, which also is meant for such intervention. So there is a work which the CSR is doing. Even myself on the other project was the one who developed the technology, which will be deploying from their water side. So there's some of this, we are working with them, and then we are doing something which will bring some positive results, but also the nature of the problem itself, it's a long one, which it needed to be. It's not the solution. Maybe if I put it to be brief, the solution should not. It's not an overnight thing, considering the challenges in general which the waterworks have throughout the country.
Yes,
I'm not sure if I responded. Are you satisfied with my response?
I'm satisfied. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Let me check for the last time if there are any other questions before we close the session. Okay, in the absence of questions, I would like to thank you, colleagues, for joining us this morning. Thank you to those who join us via live stream and those who join us on this platform. One last thing that I would like to add is that if you feel like you want to interview one of the panelists here, please feel free to contact us. We will then link you up with them. Thank you again to our panelists for availing yourself and for the great presentations as well. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dee.
Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.